Hey Mike, it's Flanny. Have you memorized all the new rules yet about roster moves and service time and game conditions?
Not yet, Flanny. We'll have plenty of time to kind of sort through all those details and plenty of people to help decipher everything. Just couldn't be more excited about an actual date in front of us to where we can get back to work. But some of the details, we had a call with the guys today and just explaining, listen, there's going to be a lot of oddness to this. Embrace it. Let's get our head around it. Let's expect it. Let's figure out how to use it as an advantage, because the more we get accustomed to things being outside of what we're accustomed to, the better this adjustment's going to be.
Well, I wanted to jump right into a roster decision. When camp was suspended, there were a lot of guys that were on the bubble who were NRIs or guys out of options, and you were trying to squeeze them on a 26-man. How much of an advantage is it for you guys, especially, to at least start the season with 30?
Yeah, I think every team is probably going to take advantage of that, and I think you're going to see pitcher-heavy rosters just as precaution. I do have to tell you, Flanny, I've been so impressed with what our pitching staff has done. Cal Eldred and Larry Carter really put a good template together, and then the guys bought in to where they kept building themselves up. And I know there had to be some times where guys were really stuck in the monotony, and is there really an urgency? But that really wasn't the overall feel of what our guys were doing when we got to work. I mean, we were getting videos. I told you guys this before. They continue to send videos and breaking down, making mechanical adjustments, trying to figure out ways not just to survive it, but to somehow improve by making some of the adjustments that they needed to make. So couldn't have been any more proud. And that whole statement really revolves around the fact that I think our guys are going to show up, be ready to go. We're going to have some live batting practices the first day they show up. Day 1 and day 2, we'll have lives. The guys are ready to go. Multiple ups for the starters. These guys are prepared for that. They've been hungry for it. They've been begging us to try and facilitate live at-bats, both from the position player side and from the pitchers. So I believe we're going to be much further ahead than what we would normally be right when you show up for spring training. And hopefully we can just continue to build on what the guys have been able to do on their own.
To a man, the guys in camp the first time around all talked about the energy and enthusiasm from that camp. But with spring training 2.0, no fans, no high-fiving, no bro hugs or anything like that. What kind of a challenge is it to keep that energy, enthusiasm level up as a coaching staff?
Yeah, that's I think you hit it right on the head. One of our main objectives, and once again, the staff's done a great job of just trying to keep that same. I mean, we have a very positive, energetic. We have a group and a staff that's passionate about this game and passionate about trying to figure out how to help these guys get the most of what they have. And for us, it's pretty easy. I mean, you should have heard the call I had with the coaches when we finally said, "Okay, here we go." I mean, you'd have thought they just got let out. It was really encouraging this entire time just to watch. You can't fake that a lot. When you get into some trying times and you face some adversity, I think you start to show what you're all about. And this group has just really looked forward to figuring out how to help guys regardless of the oddity of it, because it is going to be I think there's going to be some unique challenges. Can't tell you exactly how we're going to navigate all of them, but I know we're not afraid of any of them. And looking forward, once again, Flanny, I believe, how can we use to what somebody might think as a negative, how can we turn that on its head and use it as a positive? We're going to constantly be reframing every situation we find ourselves in and realize that, no, it's not what we're used to, but this is going to be our norm for now. We're going to make the most of it.
Mike, how will you manage differently with a shorter spring training 2.0 plus knowing every game, every inning counts because there's only 60 games? How have you thought that you might have to manage a little differently?
Yeah, Karen, I've always felt urgent. Every inning, every game has that much weight on it. I realize analytically that there's plenty to support how it's a new reality. I think we're going to have to be creative. One, with understanding that it is different. We got to protect guys. We have to listen to their bodies. We don't know how they're going to respond. We believe from the work that's already been put in, we think that they're going to be able to respond in a certain way. But this is all new to us. So we've got to be very clear in our communication. We're going to be very clear, first of all, with health and safety. It's going to be our mantra of how do we continue to stay on top of it. And that's not just virus related. That's how do their bodies, are they responding to everything that's coming along? And part of that's going to be keeping a close eye. We have extra pitchers, trying to get guys to continue to think about some of the things that we talked about in spring training. Is let's be ready. Let's be prepared to think outside the box. How can we use each of you in a way that helps us win this particular game? I can't sit here and tell you though, Karen, that there's more urgency now for winning this game, because I don't think you could put any more pressure on ourselves or any more importance on each individual pitch. And I think if we had done that in the past, then shame on us. There's an urgency every time we walk on the field to give the very best product that we can put out there. And I understand the mathematics behind how this shortened season turns it into a sprint to where things can start to look a little different. I think we have a responsibility to be the very best we can be every time we walk out there. So I don't think that perspective is really going to change. Now, how we use guys, I think that was going to look different anyhow. I think guys had some buy-in to, all right, let's start maybe reframing and changing the way that we think about how we're used in our particular roles. What can we do if we believe that what the organization is trying to do, what this coaching staff's trying to do, is put each of us individually in a place where we can be the most successful we can be, which collectively will give us the best chance to be as successful as we can be. Then we know that we trust the process, and then it's buying in and committing to that process, even though it might be a little different than what we've seen in the past.
Mike, it's Alec. I know it's been a while since Mondi was cutting it close at the end of spring training, but just curious about the health of a guy like him and Salvi and Salvi Woods, just how optimistic you are about where those guys are at right now.
Yeah, like I think we all understand that there's a few guys who probably benefited from the extra time. I mean, none of this has been how anyone would want it, but when you look at, we're going to have to taper Salvi's overall workload. That's really not much of a question, except for what we're hearing from the medical team, if they tell us anything different, or if Salvi's body responds any different. But right now, you look at him, he's even in better shape than when he was when we had version 1.0. He looks fantastic, and everything we're getting is that he's ready to go. We've had Pedro Gafol's hands on him almost every single day, and eyes on, and everything is looking exactly the way it should. We've had quite a bit of video sent over from Mondesi and getting the same reports. So it once again, practice and elevated practice in spring training, each new level of intensity always has that risk of how guys, their bodies will respond. So curious and excited to kind of watch Mondi as he gets back in here, but everything we're getting from him right now is that he used that time very wisely, and he's going to be ready. Salvi Woods Jr., same thing. I mean, he was just kind of slow going with that ankle, and now everything's pointing in a really good direction to give him a chance to come in and continue to show what he can do.
I know it's the roster decisions go way up the chain, but I mean, how tough is it with a 60-person pool to make certain decisions between prospects and guys who might be able to contribute? Just like, how tough of a challenge is selecting those 60 and making sure you've got the right guys?
Yeah, 60 is a pretty big number. I mean, we were larger than that, obviously, as we headed into spring training and in the spring. I feel we've got a nice representation of what we're thinking right now with guys who we believe will help us in the 2020 season, as well as making sure that we have some room for some of our prospects. And you guys that we were able to spend time around each other in the spring, you know how much I like having these young players around. I think there's so many benefits that can come. One is just kind of getting their feet wet, what it feels like, looks like. We know a lot about the culture of the organization as a whole and how strong it is. We also need to get guys kind of initiated into that clubhouse culture and to see and to watch some of our veteran players, watch a Gordon work, watch what Salvi does on a day in, day out basis. Those sort of lessons really are so hard to replicate any other way except by having them around. And so to get them used to what we're doing, plus just the repetitions. Right now, obviously, there's a lot of questions what's going to happen developmentally. So to have some of our prospects around, I think is going to be a great experience for them. And I also think it'll be a great chance for us to continue to develop some of the things that our system's already put into place.
And last thing for me, I'm curious, like, we haven't talked to you since the Royals obviously said they would be paying their employees and keep around their minor leaguers. I mean, just how proud were you to be in an organization that chose to do those things and with the leadership the organization has?
Well, I just can't say enough, and we've heard it very consistently from our players, from staff, from front office people. I said this before and truly live by that. During times of adversity, I believe you see the true character of what people are made of. And I think just about anybody who's watched this closely, and even through all of the tough conversations that have happened in labor negotiations, I think everybody understands that our ownership group has been in a very unique position. And the way that they have handled this and how they have stood up and with leadership along with Dayton to be able to take a strong stance of trying to do the right thing, even though it's not the easy thing. Once again, you thrive as an organization, and you can sense that swell of pride for people putting kind of their money where their mouth is, and backing up and trying to do the right thing for the people that mean so much to this game and to this organization. So there's a lot of tough decisions ahead still, and I know whenever you start trying to think outside the box and challenge the norm, you're always up for more controversy too. But to stand up and do the right thing when it's not easy, that's just something I can't say enough about for as a person, as a part of this organization, just how admirable it is and how grateful we are for their leadership.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey, Mike, it's Lynn. Wanted to ask you. Hey, hope all is well. And I wanted to ask you, I know you said every game it comes with that intensity, but is there anything you guys as a staff and as players can do to try and make sure you get out of the gates quick? Because it seems like that's going to be even more important just with the length of this season. And it's might be one of those things where you can't, sort of get yourself in out of the gates, but you might put yourself in a bad position out of the gates, depending on how things go.
Yeah, and there's validity to that, Lynn. I had a number of people, some of our staff included, who talked even about us playing in a 162-game season, how important it was to come out of the gates, and we've got to have this good start. The truth is, Lynn, a lot of times we can get distracted outside of what we need to do right now, and it happens so easy in our game. If we tell ourselves that if we don't win so many out of the first so many, then we're done. First of all, it's not completely true. And secondly, it becomes a distraction as we start thinking outside of what we need to do right now. We are getting away from things that we can control to help our chances right now. And so our job, I believe, as a staff is to minimize the distractions. And one of those distractions is anything outside of this pitch. And I know that sounds simple, but that's truly the way for us to be as consistently as good as we can be, is we have to minimize this down to the most manageable pieces. And the piece is this play. Right now, what's my responsibility? And not to get so distracted. So in application, we're going to chase every single win. I mean, I can't say it any more clear. If we started the season and it was, do or die today, I'm going to go after this game with everything that we have without hurting anybody. That's going to be that balance, is how do we not hurt anybody? How can we go about chasing every single win like it's the last chance we'll ever have to get one? And I'm going to continue to pound the table on that. And I know it makes exciting conversations saying, hey, if you can just run off and do this at the beginning, are we expected then to go actually try harder than what we normally would have? If so, shame on us. Like I said, we've got a responsibility to play the game a certain way every single time we have the honor of strapping on that uniform. And it makes it very consistent from communication standpoint, and then from an application standpoint. If everybody just knows this is what's expected of us, we leave nothing in the tank. Every single moment we're out there, whether it's our concentration or whether it's what we're doing physically. And Lynn, I know that's not the answer you're looking for, but that's truly how we're going to continue to try and avoid that distraction of, if we don't win game one, then you're done for. I mean, guys are going to fall into traps like that unless we're able to kind of navigate them back, get back into the moment, get back into this pitch, and let's control what we can control.
And I wanted to ask you about starting pitching, and I know it's something that I'm sure you guys have spent a lot of time thinking about, but you hear this idea that even with these 3 weeks, that's when the season starts, starters may not be able to really go that long. What's your thought on that and how that's going to unfold? And I know you guys try your best to get these guys as ready and keep them as ready, but without actual games, when the games start, what's reasonable to expect from your starters?
Yeah, as far as what's reasonable and for innings or pitches, won't know that until we move a little further along. I still love the idea of guys understanding that we're going to make decisions that are going to be best for our club, and once again move away from some of the norm. And I think an odd season, and I would certainly say this would classify as that, an odd season allows you to start maybe moving outside of what the norm would be, and to where we're not defining a quality start like this, but here's what we need you to do. And it could be using guys in multiple different roles. It could be really just about anything that has been thrown out there in the past. Let's not take it off the table, and let's, especially in a season like this with so many different kind of unique variables that have been thrown into this mix, let's take advantage of what we feel is going to give us our best chance this particular night. And guys were starting to really buy into that into spring training. The longer people have been around, the harder it is to kind of change that thought philosophy. But I believe, once again, with so much uncertainty, guys are starting to buy in even more, just from our conversations we've had, very clear conversations about, prepare yourself to be stretched out, even though you've been a guy that maybe wasn't so stretched out, or prepare that your start could look a little different. And we're going to use some of these other arms that we have available. Let's think about just doing my part and buying into that's the best thing for us. And so, we're always going to have a why. These guys are smart. They need to know here's what we're doing, and here is why. If we don't have a why, then you're free to question as much as you want, but at least understand that we've put a lot of thought into this. We're going to use the data to help us. We're going to use what we see to help us, but we want to try and maximize each individual piece that we have to give us the best chance each particular night.
Mike, along those lines, this is Vern. Along those lines, would it be fair to say that your pitching staff looks even better in a 60-game season, where maybe you don't have the innings eaters for 162, but you got a lot of guys that can get outs?
Yeah, Josh, I don't think that's an inaccurate statement at all. I think we have quite a few guys that are actually still trying to define what they do really well, right? So we've got a number of pitchers who have been starters thinking about, all right, let's talk about, comes to mind as Glenn Sparkman. Let's try and focus the whole group. We all talked about this early in spring. Let's see if we can kind of harness that really big stuff and try and make it maybe into smaller bites. How about, taking that same idea as a starter? How can we condense your stuff for certain parts of that lineup? And then taking some other guys and say, let's think about maybe stretching you out a little bit to where you've been just kind of one, possibly two. Let's try and stretch you out, see if we can match you up in parts of a lineup that you can carry through 6 hitters. I think it's going to be part of the conversation. But I agree, Josh. We've got a number of guys, especially as you start looking at how our pen was developing. We've got some good stuff down there, some very, very good stuff. And guys who I believe are going to have success against hitters on both sides of the plate. But we're going to kind of cluster them to where we feel they're going to have success and prepare them for certain matchups. And then try once again to put them in positions to succeed. But it might be a little different than maybe how they've been used in the past.
And then Alec brought up earlier how the organization has served as a conscience really for Major League Baseball, paying the minor leaguers and whatnot. Dayton has also reached out to a number of players concerning what else is going on in this country about the treatment of Black men and Black women. I'm wondering what role you've played in those conversations and how you expect to embrace those conversations as the season starts.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the conversations that we have been able to have, just trying to learn and to understand more and help me know what I don't know, help me understand something that I can't even pretend to put myself into. And had a couple of the players send me some things to read or something to watch. And the one of the major benefits from day one of this whole quarantine has been able to spend more time with guys in real life. And it's not just about their production on the field and their performance. It's about who they are, what's important to them, and then to be able to address tough situations when they come along. And have always admired how Dayton has taken lead and whether it's in the Urban Youth Academy or a number of many other things that he and his family have jumped in and just got their hands dirty, rolled up their sleeves and figured out how can we help and how can we serve this community, serve those in need, and help with social injustice. So it's one of the conversations that you never know how that's going to happen. And if the season had just taken off and we're just stuck in the baseball every single day, but been able to get raw and real with some of our guys and just once again try to listen and learn.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, Mike, it's Todd Lebo at Sports Radio 810. I just quick question about, it's been a long road to get to where you guys are, to have a plan to come to Kansas City next week and get everything going. But we're still a ways away from having games, and part of that is going to be making sure everyone stays healthy. And that's probably going to be a lot of personal responsibility for those guys. Have you had those conversations with them yet, or is that going to be one of the main things you talk about next week to make sure the only way to keep playing is to not have positive tests on COVID?
Yeah, Todd, we actually, again, talked about that today. Most of our conversations with the guys have been one-on-one and in small groups. Today it was the whole club and kind of let guys send in questions via webinar. But, one of the topics that continued to come up either from Nick Kinney, our head athletic trainer, or myself, and even through Dayton, was, guys, we've got a responsibility now. We've always had this social responsibility as far as health goes, to try and do the right thing to eliminate the risk, regardless of what you think individually. Just caring about people, having some empathy to put yourself in other people's shoes, and realize that this thing has rocked a whole lot of folks' worlds. So let's just be wise about that. And now the reality is, we're really dependent on each other. We're dependent on each other of how we go about any free time that we have. And I just wanted to continue to pass on the urgency, and that word urgency is used a lot with us right now, the urgency to make sure that you're just being smart and protect yourself, protect your families. But then, don't lose sight of the fact of what you're going to be bringing in here. So let's be smart.
Hey, Mike, it's Jay with Associated Press. How you doing today?
Good, Jay.
I wonder, as you construct this spring training 2.0, how much do you balance the need to get these guys ready in a hurry with also making sure that they don't, with the idea of preventing injuries and making sure they don't ramp up so quickly that the guys get hurt, trying to prepare in like a truncated period of time? Like, as a manager, when you construct your schedule, how do you balance those things?
Well, it's always going to be at the forefront, and fortunately we have an incredible system in place for testing and kind of getting ahead of maybe where there are some weaknesses along the chain that might point towards something about to happen. And we're going to need just great communication. We're going to need be on top of every single player and how they're responding. But once again, I do believe we're ahead of the curve a little bit. Guys have been informed here for a while. Once we get going again, here's what you can expect. And so prepare yourself, have yourself ready, and then we'll adjust as we need to. So it's impossible to replicate the intensity of a game once the Major League season starts. It's also near impossible to replicate the intensity of Major League camp. There's more pressure. There is an urgency. You know, guys are starting to just push the throttle a little bit more. So we'll continue to watch and monitor, but I think we have to be wise and very clear the fact that this is kind of uncharted territory that we can't necessarily say, oh yeah, this is exactly how we do this, because it's new. And we're going to have to constantly have our strength and conditioning staff as well as our medical team hands-on and give us as many tests as we can to, one, make sure guys are staying safe and healthy before they walk in the door. That's going to be the protocol. After that, what do we need to do to ensure and give us the best chance possible of keeping guys physically healthy as far as how their body's working and the demands of the baseball season. So I see a heightened sense of awareness in every regard, just from how different this is compared to where we normally would be. And so how we're scheduling Spring Training 2.0 is all about efficiency, making sure that we're getting guys in, ready to go. They're tested, they're prepared, virus tested, but also baseball tested to where we know that we can push a little bit. And then we're going to have to take advantage of opportunities when to back off. But for the most part, most of these guys have not backed off much. And so a good portion of the work that they'd have been doing this time of year, they've continued to kind of simulate. And I think that's going to be an advantage, but time will tell as we get out there on the field.
This COVID talk, obviously you guys are not the only ones returning to play. NBA also, model of course, as well. And they're already starting to run into some roadblocks today. Commissioner Adam Silver saying that if the spread begins to be significant, they're going to have to consider once again shutting down. So how optimistic are you that you guys are going to be able to realistically get through this full schedule? And, is it in the back of your mind a little bit concerning that you're starting to see already cracks showing in other leagues' return to play plans?
Well, I don't think you can ignore those. And I know we're going to try to continue to learn from the other sports. But you asked the question to the eternal optimist. So I'm convinced that if we do our part, and you know what, we're going to be trusting everybody else in the league too. And I hope we see that consistency, not just through our club, but from the others teams as well, to make the sacrifices that we need to make to be able to keep moving forward and put a good product on the field for our fans. So I think it's going to be a combination of what we're learning, what's going on in the medical world that can continue to give us guidance and to give us wisdom to where we can help put our guys in the best shape possible. And, we've got it's a pretty intense set of requirements that we have for us to even get back. And I think if guys take it as serious and we're modeling it really well from a leadership perspective, I'm liking our chances of figuring out how to continue to keep this going and keep putting ourselves in a place where we can bring the fans what we know they're looking for.
Hey, Mike, I asked Dayton Moore about just some of the coaches who are a little older, like the Rusty Kuntzes and the Dershleys and whatever. And he said he's had conversations with you and that you are going to, let them make decisions. Have you heard from your, some of the people who are not on the field, who are a little older, what their decisions are? Will there be special circumstances for them or a special way that they can contribute without actually being out there?
Yeah, we're going to continue to have these conversations, Karen, and make sure everybody understands that we support wherever they are on this, wherever they are on the spectrum. And I think everyone you come across in our communities will be in a different place. And let us know where your concerns are. Let's talk about real risk. Let's talk about how to mitigate that risk the best that we can. And if there are guys that it just doesn't make as much sense to put them in that spot, then we figure out ways to keep them relevant. And there's so many things that we can do remotely. I mean, we've been coaching remotely for the last, since we broke, since we left Surprise, and guys are continuing to help in a number of different ways by not even being face-to-face. So we know that that's possible. We just want to make sure everybody has all the information, understands where they are, where we are as an industry, where we are in our communities, and to help them make those decisions. But always, we're going to support them, and that doesn't just go for the coaches and people in our front office. I mean, that goes for our players as well. We're just going to have to continue to talk through these things and try once again to show some empathy and understand where they are and how they feel about the situation we're in right now.
Hey, Mike, it's Harold. How you doing, man?
Good, Harold.
Hey, you said you're an eternal optimist, but with the 60-game season now instead of 162, I'm just wondering how your present team is constructed, and of course, coming off those 2 seasons they've had in a row where, the losses piled up. They feel now with a 60, from your conversation with them, there's a little more pep in the step with them now that they know that there's more chance to make a playoff run if possible with such a short sample size?
I tell you what, I don't think I've ever been around a group that believes right now in themselves as much as this group, with all things considered. And I'm hearing it one-on-one, which I think they're probably forced to say. But even in their group and their group chats, when they get into small groups, these guys are saying all the right things of, hey, let's go out and just play our kind of baseball and put pressure on, do the little things right. Kansas City Royal style baseball is winning style baseball in any environment, and you cut it down into a short sprint. It's in anybody's ballpark, and our guys I know are so excited to get out there. It's a lot of talk right now. We got to get back out there. We got to figure out what our 30 is going to look like, and in the meanwhile, start taking all those precautions and taking all those steps and things that maybe distractions to other guys and other teams and things that I'm hearing. I'm not hearing that with our club. Not from day one. It's been so impressive and so just encouraging and just a breath of fresh air to hear these guys will do whatever we got to do and ready and can't wait to get back out there regardless of what it looks like. And so I think, first of all, just having that mindset gives us a leg up, I believe, on a lot of people.
Mike,
go ahead.
26-man roster, you're allowed to keep 13 pitchers. With 30, is it 17?
From what we were told last, there is not a restriction on how we break up the roster.
Oh, okay. So you could have more than 17 if you wanted.
You could. 17's a lot.
Yeah, that's a big number. Okay, thank you.
Everybody's covered. We've gone well past a half hour here, but want to make sure you got everything you needed. Mike, thank you so much for your time. For all the media, again, who wasn't on the call at the outset, there'll be an advisory coming out from us. I'd like to hold a Zoom conference with everybody regarding the stadium protocols, both for spring training 2.0 and the regular season. I think it's fair that we all talk about it. They are rather stringent for Major League Baseball, but we have to adhere. So first of the week, you'll hear from us on that. First workout will be at some point next Friday. It is not on Wednesday. It'll be next Friday, and you'll be getting advisories from us regarding that. So thanks, everybody. Have a great, safe weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks again, Mike.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.